Okay, now it's being recorded. So I want to welcome our guests to the program. During the Super Bowl, of course, my team wasn't in the game, the Dolphins. You can feel sorry for us now, you guys out in California. But I saw the stadium and was just blown away. And then I tried to find out who the architects were and found out through one of our great members, our president-elect this year, Amanda Barton. And so she helped us put this program together. So thank you. So let me start. I'm going to introduce all three of our panelists, and then I'll let you take it away. Neil Prunier has been with HKS for 8 years and is a senior project architect in the venues practice. Other projects with the HKS studio has included high-rise residential in Washington, large mixed-use projects at the University of California, and a renovation of an iconic animal park in Miami. So you have to tell us, Neil, what that was. I'm guessing, but and then Neil led the exterior team for SoFi Stadium to deliver the metal panel and the ETFE roof structure, which we'll hear some more about. Our next panelist is Manzur Mirkar. He's a senior project architect with HKS, 7 years with their venues group, and has worked on several stadium and arena projects during his tenure. He was part of the exterior team as well and was in charge of managing the design and delivery of the large center hung infinity screen. That thing was massive. It was amazing. And last but very, very not least, definitely not least, Amanda Trimble is a project interior designer with the firm, with HKS. She also has 8 years of experience in sports and entertainment, and her past projects include US Bank Stadium, YouTube Theater, and Escon Field in Hokkaido, Japan. I should have read that before. I'm sorry, Amanda.
You got it.
Amanda helped lead the interior design team for SoFi Stadium with a focus on the premium suite experience. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Oh, wait. We will have Q&A at the end. Sorry. Q&A at the end. Put your questions in the chat and I will field them at the end of the program. All right, take it away, guys.
Thank you, Cheryl. Amanda, are you gonna? There we go.
I got it.
All right. Let's go to the next.
There we go.
So just a quick game plan. Again, my name is Neil Prunier, Senior Project Architect with HKS, and I led the exterior team. I'm going to talk to you briefly on a very high level, just in general about the stadium design itself, what our primary design drivers were, and then touch very briefly on the some of the structural elements of it. Then Manzur is going to take it over. He's going to get into a lot more of the specifics of the design of the metal panel and ETFE roof, and then Amanda's going to come in and wrap it up by showing us some of the fantastic suites and clubs that we have on the interior of the stadium. Next. So again, we're HKS. We're a global firm with offices across Asia, the United States, and Europe. We have multiple practices: hospitality, healthcare, commercial mixed use, and then the three of us are with the venues group, which consists of sports, theaters, and convention centers. We have a long history of working with the NFL on their stadiums. One of our first was Lucas Oil Field for the Indianapolis Colts. And then we worked on A&T, or we were architects for AT&T Stadium for the Dallas Cowboys. And then just before SoFi Stadium, we did the US Bank Stadium with Minnesota Vikings, and then obviously SoFi Stadium with the LA Rams and Chargers. With each iteration of these stadiums, we try to learn a little bit more from the previous one and step up our game, both in terms of the architecture as well as the functionality of the facility. So we are located at Hollywood Park, or our site is located in Hollywood Park, which is in Inglewood, which is its own municipality that's completely encapsulated within the city of Los Angeles. It's located about halfway between downtown and the beach. It's sort of up on a bluff, so it gets some nice wind views or nice views towards the ocean, as well as some of the ocean breezes. And it's in very close proximity to LAX, which you're going to see how that impacted our design in just a second. Next. So our site, Hollywood Park, it was an old racetrack, and the actual square footage that was available to us far exceeded what we needed for a stadium. And there was a sort of a master plan in place long before we came along to add the stadium. And then so when the decisions, Stan Kroenke and group decided that this was the location where they wanted to build the next the stadium for the Rams, we had to sort of sandwich ourselves in an already existing master plan. That master plan always had a park as its central element, and we decided to respect that. You could have come in with such an iconic building, sort of dropped it right in the middle of the site, and we decided that that wasn't the right choice. That recognizing the importance of that park to the community and what it was going to bring prior to us even arriving was superseded just our own venue, and so we worked within the master plan and kept that central park as its or that park as its central feature, and then worked around it. In addition to the stadium, the site's going to include NFL Network. There's a partner hotel for the NFL. It's going to be a 2-team stadium with 70,000, ended up becoming 80,000 seats, expandable up to 100,000 during a Super Bowl event. 3 million square feet. There's also 2 other venues that are associated with the stadium. One is an outdoor plaza, what we're calling Champion Plaza, is now known as American Airlines Plaza, which is an outdoor plaza between the stadium and then what has become YouTube Theater, which is a 6,000 seat indoor performance venue. In the lower left-hand corner, there's a retail district. There's and over time, currently there's a lot of parking lots that surround the site, but over time it's going to be slowly developed with hotels, mixed-use developments, and additional residential. Next. So as I mentioned, we are incredibly close proximity to LAX. We're directly underneath the flight path. The north runway goes on one side of our project, the south runway goes on the other, and we had a very strict FAA height limit that we had to stay under, such that it sort of forced us to really consider the design of the building and how to execute the facility and keep it below that required height limit. Next. And here you can see if you were on a plane coming in for a landing at LAX, you got the view of the Pacific Ocean and beyond in our facility as it's under construction as you pass over it. We really had to think about as many thousands and thousands of people that are coming to the stadium for an event. There's going to be equally those number of thousands of people just flying over it every few minutes in airplanes with these incredible views down on top of the stadium. So we called that our 5th elevation, and we tried to give as much thought and attention to what the individuals passing overhead would see, just as much as what your experience is either in the facility or around it, down at the ground. Next. So our challenge here is, how do we create a stadium that's unique to Los Angeles? There's a couple unique things about LA, and we want our stadium to be an expression of that. Next, Amanda. And we're operating on a global stage. Los Angeles, the entertainment capital of the world. We're all familiar with Hollywood and the celebrities that come out of it. In an indoor-outdoor experience, we have phenomenal weather pretty much year-round. Mild summers and warm winters, and a lot of our buildings have this ability to open up and connect the indoor and the outdoor. We thought a lot about embedded object, that we have the Santa Monica Mountains and a lot of terrain that's immediately adjacent to the city. couple of iconic projects, the Getty Center, which sits up on a hill, sort of nestled on the top, Griffith Observatory, the sort of same thing, built up in the Santa Monica Mountains, overlooks the main city. The lower right-hand corner is Dodger Stadium as it's under construction, and you can see how that again the city's in the background, but there was this attempt to sort of carve the earth in order to create the facility. And then the one in the lower left-hand corner is the Hollywood Bowl, and again it's this iconic band shell where all sorts of performers come to play, but the seating rake in that for that center is carved into the side of the hill, and you sort of either sit, and then in some locations there are places where you can sit on the grass and as you watch your events. And then the slide on the right, lower right hand corner, is layering. LA is a massive city, and the picture is of our freeway system and how there's this lots of overpasses and underpasses and this incredible weaving of traffic, but that's a sort of a literal manifestation of just the layering of cultures and communities, and just an incredibly disparate amount of disparate communities that all come and find themselves living in LA and come together and somehow make it work. Next, Amanda. So we take all those elements, the embedded object, global stage, layering, indoor, outdoor, and we asked ourselves what kind of form, what big gesture can we make that speaks to that? And somehow out of that, we came up with this big curve. And some say it evokes sort of the curves of the freeway overpass. Some people think of it as a sort of the wave, the curvature of our coastline. But we thought it was a single big gesture that sort of, I don't know, spoke to LA and to Southern California, the indoor outdoor experience, and so we decided to run with that. Next. Again, in addition to that curve, there was a number of other factors that sort of influenced the design of the shape. We had a strict FAA height limit. A lot of NFL facilities, the field is sunken below grade, sometimes 20 feet, sometimes 50 feet. But at LA, or SoFi Stadium, in order to make sure that we met our occupancy, the required number of fans that we wanted to fit in, at but create a facility that fit under the FAA height limit, we ended up sinking the field 100 feet below grade. So there's actually, if you show up to a game at SoFi, there's more people that have to circulate down to their seat than circulate up, which is sort of a unique feature. And the challenge of how do we bring these people and circulate them down to their seat and make it its own experience. And I'll get to that in just a second. Again, we're in earthquake country, so there was working with our engineers, Walter P. Moore, there was a certain structural advantage to creating a long load curving roof shell. They're able to spread out those loads. And so there's a certain lateral optimization that happens with that shape. And then again, it's an arch, so we kept it open on all sides, so that's really just a canopy, and it allows the air and the ocean breezes to pass right through the stadium. Next minute. Again, earthquake country, but we decided that that's not enough for us. We actually want to build our stadium almost immediately adjacent to a fault line. We have the Newport Inglewood Fault that runs across one corner of our site, so that it would have been challenging nonetheless, but having the fault that immediate proximity to our project only added to the challenge. Next. So the facility consists of 3 separate structures. There's a bowl structure, which is the seating, the light blue, that you see in section, the seating that is predominantly concrete and steel, and is seismically braced with buckling restraint braces. And that structure sort of sits within the 100-foot hole that I previously mentioned. It's entirely separate, is not connected in any structural capacity whatsoever to the roof shell, which is you see the columns on the exterior, and then the ETFE roof that passes over the top, from which the video board that Mans is going to talk about is suspended from. And then the third structure, which nobody would ever recognize or even know is there, is if you look at the two bright orange bars on either side of this section, there's a MSE wall that's holding back that 100 feet depth of earth all the way around. So the first thing that the contractors had to do when they went to build this thing was they just spent months, 9 months, I think, simply circling the site with these earth scrapers, just around and around and around, in order to dig down a 100-foot hole, and then build an MSE wall to hold that earth back before they could even start to build the foundations of the stadium. Next. Here again, another section of the graphic, and you can see the three separate structures: the shell with the columns, the ETFE roof that passes over, the bowl structure, and then there is we call it the moat, but it's that seismic isolation zone that's in pink, which separates the MSE wall from the structure. The structure itself, in a severe earthquake, could move a couple feet. However, the size of the MSE wall required, the 100-foot tall MSE wall requires maintenance, and so they have to be able to bring a cherry picker in there in order for somebody to maintain that wall. So it's ultimately, we end up designing this 15-foot moat that nobody ever sees. I mean, you can get into it, but nobody ever sees it, that rings the entire perimeter of the stadium. Next. There's a little graphic that we have that sort of shows those elements. The blade columns, there's a perimeter of blade columns that come all the way around the stadium that are outside the seismic moat. On top of each of those is seismic isolators, so that if in an event of an earthquake, that entire roof shell can move independent, and again, it's not touched or connected to the stadium or the stadium structure in any way. You hit it, yeah, there we go. There's a way to pause it. Seismic. And then the primary structure of the
Sorry, Neil.
that's all right. Primary structure of the shell, and then infilled within that over the field is the ETFE, and then cladding the primary structure of that shell is 35,000 unique metal panels, which Manzer is going to talk to you a little bit about. All right, let's move on. This, in case you're wondering what a seismic isolator is, these are 5-foot discs, and they're located at the top of 29 blade columns that ring the perimeter of the stadium, and then there's 4 touchdown points. And if you look at this picture behind me, that would be a touchdown point, and then all the way over there where that curve comes down, that would be another touchdown point. But at the base of all those touchdown points are these discs, and it's basically what that video shows. It allows the structure to move up to 5 feet in any given direction during a seismic event. Yeah, the next. And here they are, pictures of those as installed in the field. You can see the one in the middle is at one of the touchdown points, is that big roof structure is coming down. And then if you look at the one on the left, at the top of that cylindrical column, you can see just a very faint black line. And then a close-up of it of the slide on the right. And so the way the roof shell is assembled is it was we worked very closely with our metal panel fabricator, a combination of Crown Core and then Zahner supplying the metal panels, and they were built as assembled on the ground as mega panels. And you can see the size when you look at the guy in the middle of the scale of these things. And there was 29 sections of these that ringed all the way around the perimeter. And they set up these. Fortunately, the one thing we didn't lack on this stadium was laydown work around the perimeter, because we had that entire site. So all around that site, there were sections of crews that were assigned to different panel sections. They built a space frame structure, clad it with the perforated metal panels, and then flew them up one at a time as the steel structure was getting finished. Next. Here we have a little video. One thing I didn't talk about, like I said, I mentioned in the very beginning, the park. This is that park, that lake that was the central feature of that park. You can see the stadium in the background. The park is public. It's, it existed, pre-existed on site before the notion of bringing a stadium there, and it was required by the city of Inglewood, and it stayed that way. And so it's always accessible to the public. You can see the nature of it. Next, Amanda. And then this is oh, I mentioned the challenge of how do we bring people down a 100-foot hole and make it an experience. So what we have are these canyons, and there's 4 of them, on northeast, west, and south quadrants of the stadium. And when you arrive, there's a series of escalators and staircases that allow you these views down towards the field. They're incredibly landscaped with terraced gardens and trees as you descend that thing, and then wide open concourses. There's a considerable amount of what we call SRO, standing room only areas of the stadium, but it also allows for these amazing views of the field, of the sky above, and the facility as you arrive. Go to find your seat. Next. And now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Manzer, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the show.
All right, so thank you, Neil. We're going to zoom in and kind of do a very quick deep dive into the roof canopy and talk a little bit about the metal panel system and the ETFE roof. We'll also touch a little bit on that infinity screen. That's pretty amazing. So when we're designing something so large in regards to this metal panel roof canopy, how do we really start? And the easiest answer is you go to the most basic element. And if go to the next slide, Amanda. And so when we do this, we look at the metal panel system, we zoom in, we look at the details, and we look at what we want to achieve. Neil kind of talked about that indoor-outdoor quality that we wanted to kind of get for the stadium, breathability in the skin, and also kind of perforations that would kind of screen at certain distances, but also allow you to kind of see through and kind of get that feeling of an indoor-outdoor stadium. So we took a lot of influences from like mid-century modern screens. And there was this one image that really stuck with us on this next slide, is this image of this shed. And you can see that it has these perforations on the facade and it's lit from the inside. And it completely transforms the read of how that shed is perceived daytime versus nighttime. So that was something interesting to us as we were looking at this. And again, like to mitigate that mass of the roof canopy, we were trying to look at and explore ways of making it lighter. And this perforation system kind of made sense to us. To the next slide. And so again, to kind of tackle something so large, we went to the most basic element, which is like a single panel. And after some deliberation and iteration, we came to the conclusion that a triangular panel made sense in terms of the complexity of the geometry and would allow us to kind of mitigate the complexities and the curvatures that we were going to find on that roof. So we settled on this triangular panel as a singular element that we could then multiply and apply towards the entirety of the skin. And so we started to apply this perforation and explore ways in terms of what it would feel like, what kind of look we were trying to achieve. We did many digital models in terms of what we were trying to achieve and perceive. And then we also did some physical mock-ups. And so here's some mock-ups of those individual panels. We try to explore different sizes of perforations, and then also start to look at what it would read as from a really close-up perspective. And then as you step back and looked at it from a further distance, and also kind of looking at the quality of the shade that you would read when you were indoors inside of the stadium. And an interesting thing that we wanted to explore was, again, that same thing about mid-century modern screens is when you came closer, you perceived this openness that you could actually see through the panels. But as you stepped away, the facade became a little more monolithic, but it still had this textural quality to it. And then we took this idea and then we multiplied it. Next slide. So we went from a single panel and we went to a unit of 6 panels and started to explore at that larger scale, which is more of a human height scale, and kind of looking at what that conglomerate, this set of panels going to look at. And so here's a mock-up of what that panel looks like. And then again, looking at it in terms of distances and shadow and what it would read as closer in and further out. And by the way, this mock-up is in the parking lot of our office. And so from here, we also started looking at materiality and what we wanted to achieve in terms of the quality and the texture of that skin. And we knew that we wanted it kind of reflect and achieve that color of the sky. But even within that, there's multiple choices. And we ultimately settled with this white anodized finish that has this kind of matte sheen, but still kind of takes that color of the sky and kind of reflects it during the daytime. And that was really interesting to us. And that's something that we settled on. The image on the right is a zoomed in photograph of the panel. And what's interesting about this is it's a punch system for the perforations, but it's a 2-punch system. And so what would happen is that the fabrication machine would punch a hole at the allocated location, but then it would come back and punch it again to achieve this curled edge effect. And with the design assist with Zaner, what we came to the conclusion was this curling of the edge allowed us to thin out the panel. Because what happened is the curling of the edge gave us better structural stability and stiffness. So we didn't need a thicker panel. We could reduce the material quantity and thin out the panel, which ultimately meant less material, also meant lighter weight, which also meant lighter overall structural system that supported the panels, and ultimately lesser cost. And so that's how we zoomed into the minutia of the detail of the panel and then kind of zoomed out from there. And so each panel, when we were kind of, again, looking at it, we wanted something that is still able to be assembled by a single person. So we settled with a size of like a 4-foot side for the triangular panels. And then, of course, we want to have some kind of constraints for the panel and close to equilateral as possible so that they can be multiplied into this whole blanket of a canopy. And so we set ourselves rules that the deviation from that equilateral would be plus or minus 10 degrees, because absolutely not possible to get all equilateral triangle panels across that whole system. And so this flexibility allowed us to kind of achieve that complex geometry. And even though it's a large scale canopy, there are certain areas where the geometry really folds and curves hard. And we needed the metal panel to kind of follow that geometry without compromising on the curvature of the overall surface and also on the seam lines between each of those panels. And we wanted to keep that consistent, maintain a consistent grain and maintain a consistent seam line between all of those panels. And so to achieve this, we looked at the main structural system that's on the right and kind of started from there in terms of how we would align these panels. In the middle is the subsystem that we came up with. And on the left is the major panel joints between each of those panels. Now, you would never perceive these panel joints, even though they're all there on the system, because the panel joints that ran diagonally to these were consistent in its thickness. And so ultimately, when you get this blanket of panels, those panel lines kind of disappear. Neil also showed a photograph of the super panel. And so as you assemble these into the super panel and you assemble this entire canopy, those joints between the super panels just completely disappear because of the really, really tight tolerances we had between the super panels. And ultimately, you never perceive those joints. So how do you deliver this, right? We now are in a place where we can actually digitally achieve this. This could not have been done 30, 40 years ago. So of course, the obvious conclusion for this was we had to do something that was digitally possible. There's no way to 2D document this. We had some 2D documentations as reference sheets, but most of this panel system was actually delivered in a file to fabrication system with a design assist from Zaner. And so ultimately the end deliverable was literally a TXT file or 35,000 TXT files, each TXT file for each metal panel that established the coordinates and locations of the 3 corners of the triangle, and then coordinates and sizes of the holes that were punched into the panel. And then that TXT file was given to Zaner. Zaner fed it up into their CNC fabrication, and out came metal panels. I'm simplifying, but generally that was the process. Here's a zoomed in detail of that seam line that I was talking about and kind of maintaining that consistency and the various like hole sizes for the perforation that we use to kind of get that tonality in the texture so that you never saw a hard edge, but even the perforation kind of seamlessly melded into the solids, and a zoomed in detail from the underside of what that looked like. All right, so this is something that I talked about, the coordinate systems for the 3 points of the triangle. And then also within this whole process, we were also looking at how to kind of make the system more efficient. And so through our processes, we kind of came to a 6 to 7% reduction in the number of panels, while this area of the roof kind of maintained or stayed the same. And this reduction in the panels, of course, means less fabrication time and quicker delivery, which means ultimately lesser cost. Here's a rendering of what we wanted to achieve in terms of the perforation. And if you go to the next slide, this is what we ultimately achieved. And we were very satisfied with the look, the way we had perceived it. And I think we kind of achieved with the quality, the tonal quality, the texture that we were trying to get from the system. And some more examples of photographs in the next slides. Here's, if you can see, this is a video and you can see the airplane kind of flying past by. If you caught that, the whole intent was, again, as if you were closer to the screen, you would actually be able to see and perceive things beyond the skin. But as you step back, it kind of melded up into this monolithic surface that had a texture to it. Next slide. Some mock-up photographs during the daytime. You can see towards the top edge of that left photograph, you kind of start to see the blue haze and the reflection during sunset, and the panel really successfully, that anodized white metal finish really successfully kind of absorbs and reflects those colors of the sky. And then on the right, dead on in regards to that image that we showed of the shed earlier, to kind of get that completely different quality in terms of reading that materiality and reading the surface when it's lit from the inside. Here's at the applied scale of the roof, similar to the photograph that we have over here, and then the color of the sky as it's being reflected. And here's a nighttime shot with that backlit from the back. And here's some shots from the inside and the perception from the inside when it's lit at night versus when the sun's kind of shining through. And you can kind of see it's, you could almost perceive it's a comfortable space that's shaded, but still kind of gives that link to the inside outside. And if you zoom out, that's what the entire roof system looks like. And not to forget, a large surface area of that canopy is also the ETFE system that I'm going to talk about a little bit now quickly. All right, so Neil mentioned the fifth elevation. We definitely didn't want to miss this opportunity to kind of take advantage of that. So we put up an LED system that's albeit a low-res LED system with LED pucks that are located 5 foot on center, but because of the viewing angles, you still get a really good quality screen on top of that roof. And ultimately, the stadium is the gateway now for people who are flying into LAX. So you can never miss the stadium when you're flying in, day or night. And so the indoor, outdoor, and the comfort was an important factor for us as we were designing this. And so when we were designing the ETFE system, in collaboration with our consultants, we kind of figured out that to enhance the comfort, we could regulate the temperature and the quality of the indoor space by having these operable panels on the ETFE. And on the right, there's this chart that kind of tells you these different conditions in which these operable panels could be opened, depending on whether it's night or day, the temperature outside, wind direction, and wind intensity. And this would, the operable panels would be able to allow to regulate for temperature and keep the atmosphere inside more comfortable. And that's what the entirety of the roof canopy looks like. From here, you can kind of see that textural quality of the metal skin and then the ETFE roof. All right, very quickly touching on the infinity screen. So this is definitely an interesting component of the project. Again, at the beginning of the project, another focus for us was fan experience. Generally in stadiums, when you go, either there's a video board that's dead center hung, or it's on an end zone or a sideline. And so certain people get a great view of the video board, while others have to kind of, crane their neck or kind of look at an angle to kind of experience the game on the screen. And as much as we go to the stadium to kind of watch the action on the field, there's a lot of time people spend actually watching the screen for replays or other information that's being displayed. So that screen was really important to us, and we wanted to create an experience that was democratic to all the people that were in the stadium. And that's why we came up with this kind of 360-degree screen that would be easily visible from all angles and have a best viewing angle from doesn't matter what seat you were on. The other aspect of this was kind of creating a living room experience, which is interesting considering the scale of this stadium. And so what we started off with, what does a person perceive when he's sitting? So when he's sitting in his living room watching a screen, and we came up with this idea that an ideal screen, comfortable size to look at that scale is a 9 to 15-degree angle for the screen. And so when you extrapolate that to the distances that we're talking about over here in the stadium, it ended up being that if you were on the side of the screen, closer to the screen, a 28-foot screen, give or take, would be the ideal screen size. But let's say if you were sitting in the lower bowl and you wanted to look at the screen that was across on the inside face of the Oculus or the Infinity screen, the screen size would have to become larger, and so there's a 40-foot screen size. So once you had those two screen sizes for depending on where the people were looking at it from, if you're in the upper bowl, you look at the screen that's closest to you, but if you're in the lower bowl, you're actually looking across at the larger screen, but you're not compromising on your experience because still the scale is great. And so that's where we started with, and then we integrated all the systems into it, including the sound system, and ultimately came up with this Infinity screen. And to end the Oculus portion, the Infinity screen portion, will show a video of what that experience kind of looks like. So here you can see the screen in a test configuration, and you can kind of imagine people who are at the lower bowl can kind of look across and see the screen on the inside surface, while the people in the upper bowl still get a great experience because they're still closer to that outside screen. And therefore you get these 360 views. And the screen's kind of being tweaked so that it can incorporate interactiveness and this 360 immersive kind of quality into it. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Amanda.
Thank you, Mansur. Appreciate that. Okay, well, fan experience is a perfect segue into my portion, which is touching on the interiors of SoFi Stadium. They touched on kind of the scale of the project overall and just all of the technicality that went into the design of the stadium. There was an equally big design challenge associated with not only the architecture, but the interior as well. So I've thrown the slide back in here just because it's the interior narrative of the design is very cohesive to the exterior. It needed to feel like one expression and one stadium. So we pulled inspiration from the similar places that the architecture was pulling from, this idea of a global stage, indoor, outdoor, and layering, but then how our task was to take these bigger design drivers and ultimately figure out how they translated to an interior space on a more human scale. So this idea of a global stage kind of translates to this idea of see and be seen, which very much speaks to that celebrity kind of influencer culture that surrounds Los Angeles. The fluidity of experience regarding the indoor outdoor, not only physically translating outdoor spaces and indoor spaces, but thinking about the fan experience and how you navigated between those different environments and how that ultimately informed the holistic experience. And then this idea of layering and how it translated more directly into materiality and form with some of the finishes that we selected on the inside. And then just touching again on scale, the project is huge. The premium product, there's a ton of it. These are some floor plans, not every single level, but premium product presents itself on 6 of the 8 levels of the stadium, which is highlighted in the color blocks that you can see on the plans. In total, there are 260 luxury suites. Of the 70,000 seats in the stadium, 13,000 of those are premium seats with some kind of club access or amenity. There are 12 club spaces, 7 unique suite experiences, all requiring a different finish out and design aesthetic. And then on our level 2 concourse, which is the upper right image that you see, there's a 360 premium food experience, which I'll touch on last in the presentation. And then so once we start talking about premium, every project we look at from this idea of research and understanding culture and understanding community and sense of place and how that translates into fan experience and your ultimate journey through the stadium. So every facility that we design starts from the ground up, and that nugget of research and really taking a human perspective. And so rethinking premium is kind of the mantra for how we design these facilities, because it's not just putting a suite in just to put a suite in. It's really evaluating the fan and the market and thinking, does a suite product even make sense in this facility? Where does premium make sense to distribute itself throughout the facility? How are you accessing that? How is that premium product enhancing your overall experience? So then some of these next slides that I'll run through are just kind of full bleed images of some of our premium spaces. So starting on the event level, we've got, we're always thinking about how to connect the fan to the action on the field. We're in today's market, we're competing with the NFL network, all of the media, the technology that's out there, all of the devices that you can view a game on, and the comfort of home, right? So it's pulling you out of that comfortability and getting you to spend money and drive and sit in traffic and experience something. So it's enhancing that experience and bringing you closer to the action is definitely one way that we achieve that. So a lot of our premium product is located on the event level. This club is no exception. This is one of our sideline club experiences. And all of these surfaces are GFRG, which can be, and then we've got technology mounted in the ceiling, which allows us to kind of make the space transform with technology and allows us to kind of project on a lot of these surfaces too, which is a branding opportunity as well. And then our sideline suite experience, again, just that idea of bringing you closer to the action. These are located on the field level as well, but we also think about how transforming the suite experience. Typically that's a very isolating experience. You come through a VIP entry, you're sitting behind 3 walls, you've got a narrow little suite tub, which is your only view to the field, but thinking about those spaces and how you can begin to connect to other fans and other patrons and make that a collective experience to enhance that overall. So for this product, we looked at a flexible division system. So these are metal curtains that divide each one of these spaces. So that allows you to open them up and connect all the way across to either sell that as one continuous experience or connect back and forth, or you can close that off for a sense of privacy and sell these individual. So flexibility, not only in terms of the finishes, but also the selling factor as well. And then these open up to a communal porch amenity as well, again, connecting that experience across different products. And then rethinking the suite experience also extended to our end zone products. So this is what we termed as end zone loge. They're coined as a suite product. We kind of did a hybrid experience here between a suite and a club, again, thinking of how to bring fans to a collective kind of whole experience. So this big communal space out in front, directly connected to the action. And then you've got your private suite amenity in the back. So you've got all the amenities of a typical suite, your food and beverage, your kitchenette, but even within this suite, it's still open to the field and it's open to the corridor behind. So the whole experience is very fluid and communal. And then one of my favorite spaces in this facility that's really the epitome, I think, of what this project entails, and that indoor-outdoor is the patio club. Neil mentioned before digging down so deep, it could very easily feel like you were in a cave. But with these canyons and the landscaping and just this open air feel, it really creates the opportunity for a unique premium experience. So you're open to not only the field beyond and close to the action, but you've got this beautiful kind of ambiance of the LA atmosphere and landscaping beyond you. And then starting to think about those design drivers again, and that idea of layering, not only physically in terms of like the peels that the architecture is doing and some of the forms that the material is taking, but this idea of kind of layering of people and layering of experience and layering of premium product, and how this is beginning to stack with our suite corridors connected to our patio club experience. And then again, this idea of kind of a layered experience. This is an amenity, a VIP amenity within our patio club, which we had coined as the Elite Club. So that club within a club environment kind of speaks to that nested experience within an experience, and also that idea of see and be seen. And, you know, we're not only thinking about the fan coming into the stadium on day one, we're thinking about that same fan coming back for the second and the third and the fourth time and the 10th time. And what does their experience look like? Because most likely it will not be the same. You know, maybe they're in the same seats, but they'll see something else across the bowl that, you know, how do I get there? Look at that club. That looks cool. Next time I come, I want to experience that. So it's creating kind of this layered experience that keeps you coming back for more. And then one of the features that Neil touched on in the beginning is, of course, the indoor outdoor and this idea of a 360 experience. And this picture kind of sums that up. It's just that the action on the right, the ambiance of the LA kind of backdrop on the left really makes the space feel unique, unlike any other. And then our premium product kind of capitalized on that by keeping all of our millwork, all of our bars, all of our food service low on our concourses, so as not to block views to either the game or the landscaping and the scenery beyond. And then again, thinking about that visibility of premium product within the bowl, you know, it's not just a club behind a glass wall. It's how can we create a presence of premium within the seating bowl product? So thinking about how spaces can connect to each other in a vertical nature. So thinking about visual vertical transportation, premium vertical transportation, how that begins to connect experiences together. So these are stacked suite products that connect via a central stair. And then just that visibility within the bowl. Again, if you're seated on the opposite side, you look across and see this beautiful experience, this beautiful stair. Next time you come, how do I get there? I need to get there. And then next, I'll touch on the suite product. Just again, 7 different suite experiences, all varying in terms of price point and finish out. This is one of our higher end suite products. So this is on a more premium level, higher end finishes, just thinking about the different fans that would come to the facility, how we cater to each and every fan, and what that looks like in terms of finishes and how that translated to an experience. And then our more typical suites, we looked at, again, creating that unique experience, how they felt the same, cohesive, but different. So all of these standard suite types will have the same types of finishes on the walls. So it's all porcelain clad millwork on the walls. It's all epoxy flooring. It's all porcelain clad millwork and countertops as well as cabinets. But also with this being an open air stadium, there's always challenges in terms of materiality and durability and longevity. So we had to be really careful about the individual finishes that we selected and making sure that they could withstand the elements and the test of time, which led to kind of the porcelain and a lot of the hard surfaces on the walls. The only soft surfaces that we have is the millwork, the FF&E, so the banquette seating and the loose furniture. And then with all those hard surfaces, of course, acoustics is a big concern as well. So we've got a metal ceiling inset, which is the pop-up you see in the center, but a lot of acoustic concern was built into the gypboard ceiling as well. And then again, another suite type, same type of porcelain, but you can see how within that one material, it creates a different kind of look and feel, even within the suite product. And then some of our suites, we built in a fireplace just for an added layer of ambiance. And then lastly, a stadium experience would not be complete without food and beverage. That's more people spend, I think, money on food and beverage than maybe even the price of a ticket. So it's definitely something to consider in the overall experience, but it's thinking about how we can connect that experience to the statement that the stadium is trying to make, and speaking to that authenticity and really the love letter to Los Angeles, and how we can kind of draw inspiration from a sense of place. So looking at Los Angeles and that foodie culture, and starting to pull inspiration in terms of form, in terms of finish, in terms of food offerings in the facility, and how that started to translate into a unique identity for each one of these food experiences. So these are a few shots of just kind of our premium level 2 concourse, which starts to illustrate, some of these are similar in terms of form, but they begin to express themselves and their identity in terms of materiality and lighting. So speaking to that, that kind of unique nature of the food experience. So a couple shots of that. You've got kind of a sushi experience on the left, and then a charcuterie experience on the left. Again, this is the entirety of the concourse. So as you walk around, creating that 360 degrees experience. Pizza on the left-hand side. And so you can start to see the similarities in terms of the form that I spoke to earlier, but the distinctions in terms of lighting and finish out. And then we've got some unique opportunities in our branded bars outside of the concessions that you just saw, creating a more even unique identity within these spaces as well. We weren't kind of locked into the geometry of the concession spaces, but wanted to, so we had more play in terms of materiality and I think branding and identity. So doing a lot of fun things with signage, a bit more expression in terms of materiality and seating to make each one of those experiences feel unique and special in their own right. And then they're all open, I think, on 3 sides, and they're divisible by these curtains once again. So you get this nice like layered experience and this transparency through them. And our champagne bar is the last image I have. And that is it. So I will throw it over to you, Cheryl or Colleen.
Me.
Yes, all right.
That's great. If you want to stop sharing.
Sure.
Wow, first of all, this doesn't look like a football stadium. It looks like a high-end cruise ship or a resort someplace. The interiors, it's really blown away by that. And I wanted to ask, and if you said it, I'm sorry, did you do it to LEED standard, or does it have LEED at all?
It does not have formal LEED, but the idea of sustainability and was sort of vetted throughout the design. I mean, just the nature of an open air stadium, by the fact that you're introducing breezes through those large archways and that you're not conditioning that massive volume, that alone sort of is a huge sort of sustainable feature. And it was a conscious thought throughout the design process. But no, to answer the question, that there was a deliberate choice at the beginning not to pursue LEED certification.
Yeah, well, I know that a lot of clients, don't want to take it to that level, but I know a lot of firms like yours design to those standards, even if they don't go for certification. But who is your client, the city or the team?
I believe it was called Cronky something, like it's the team.
The team.
Cronky, yeah, but it's a separate separate entity that's
right. The team owners created
from the team owner, yeah.
So we have a couple of questions in there. One is
I'm sorry, to go back to that that question that was asked. I mean, the city was heavily vested in the project. They didn't foot the bill, but they had a lot of collaboration and a lot of interaction with.
And I'm sure there was some land
ownership and with us, with our design team in the execution of it. So
I think
they were like a client. They just didn't have to pay.
But they had a lot to say.
Yeah.
I had my chat thing up and then it went away. Here it is. So there was one question. Does it rain through the metal panel system? Not that it rains that much in LA, or is there a roofing system and the secondary framing prior to the panel installation?
There is not. If it rains if it's raining and the water comes through the metal panel, and you happen to be on the concourse, then you will get wet. However, one, it doesn't rain that often, and two, the ETFE roof is a solid roof that has integral gutters and brings all the water out to the perimeter. And the ETFE roof covers the field and all the seating. So it's only on the concourses themselves where you would have water that came through the perforated metal.
All the more incentive to pop into a club.
All the more incentive to pop in.
Yeah, that's very true.
It was very important to us that when you're in that concourse, and Manzer had a lot of those pictures of, the way the light came through those perforations, and you created there was sort of this dappled light as if you were walking through a forest. That is the reality in LA, 99
Sure.
days out of 100. So we designed towards that.
That's very true. So we have another question. How do you determine the number of seating bowls and types of seating? Is that something the client comes to you with? Like, we need so many seats, such and such price point? Or is that more flexible and a mix between the look, design, and the overall capacity?
I can speak to the price point. We do a deep dive into market, really understanding the market that the facility is going to be in, to understand distribution of premium product, quantity of premium seats, distribution of premium seats. So from that lens, we do a lot of research to help us determine how much makes sense, where it makes sense, and who we're catering to.
It's really interesting when you think about okay, we need a 70,000 seat stadium. How do you make them fit within the footprint that you have? I think that whole process has to be really interesting.
And the solution that you would come up with in Los Angeles is something very different than if you were to do it in New York or Dallas or other parts of the city. Just looking at a broad spectrum of the types of fans that city has, the economy of that city, what kind of experiences those people are interested in, and then applying that. No different than the way me and Manzer worked on what is the physical manifestation of the design that's unique to Los Angeles. Amanda and her team had to work very, very closely in understanding the LA market and what's appropriate for its seating product.
The LA market, a big portion of the 1%.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is why we have so much premium.
That's why you have so much premium.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's what I love about our approach to these projects and HKS as a firm is we don't take anything for granted. We start from scratch, and with that research and that evaluation of market and culture and community and sense of place and nature of place to really understand the needs before we ever put pen to paper. So that's why each one of our buildings are so unique and our fan experiences are so unique.
Well, this is an iconic building for sure, and something that I'm sure you all and the firm is very, very proud of. I want to thank you so much. Let me look in the chat one more time. I don't think I have any more questions. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you all three of you, to leave us with, what is one thing about this project and your experience working on it that you'd like the audience to know? Manzer, why don't you start with that?
Sure. Oh boy, so many things, but I think the experience of just designing and building the stadium and look at the whole process was really interesting. But the best thing about it, and I'm sure all architects will agree, is when there's people. And the interesting thing about the stadium is this stadium was completed during COVID. So on opening day, we really didn't get to experience what the stadium was going to be, what the energy was going to feel like. But ultimately, when we did open, and especially during the Super Bowl, that's what we live for. That's what we designed for. The stadium is a static thing, but when it's full of people, that's when the architecture comes alive. It's the people that fill in the energy and make the architecture the vision that we wanted to create. And seeing people in there, especially kids, it's just amazing the reaction we get, right? When people, and especially kids who are not afraid of showing their emotions of awe or just splendidness, and that's just perfect. That's what I love the most.
That's wonderful. Neil?
You know, I would have to. There's a phrase. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. I remember when we, you know, first started getting into this. It just felt ungodly in terms of the sheer size and scale and the number of details that sort of needed to get figured out. I mean, we had an incredible team internally within HKS, you know, and at some point we probably had 40 plus architects across 3 or 4 offices all working on this. But our consultant team that extended outside of HKS, from our landscape architects to our structural engineers to the mechanical engineers we had wind engineers, we had acoustical engineers. I mean, there were a couple hundred design professionals in some capacity probably participated in this project. And when you're working on something this large and this technically complex, no one person or no one vision, you know, dominates. It's a true collective effort in order to bring all these different skill sets and different viewpoints and different agendas and different goals for what they're trying to accomplish together, reconcile them when sometimes they're competing and oftentimes they are, and ultimately get to a product or a project that you're all really, really proud of. So I think that experience to me, the actual process and all the incredible talented people that I got to work with during the course of it is what's going to stick with me.
Great.
Architects and a lot of non-architects.
That's true. So Amanda, what about you?
Yeah, I'll keep with the theme here. People, the fan experience, you know, we talk a lot about premium product and the amount of premium that we have in the facility and catering to, you know, those people that are going to come in and spend the high dollar. But it's what I love about this is everybody has a great experience. You know, even somebody coming off the street paying the cheapest price for the cheapest ticket, sitting in the highest seat, you still get the beautiful concourse with the transparency of the ETFE. You still get, you know, the beautiful views of LA and Inglewood beyond. You know, it's very democratic in terms of its just general fan experience. And then the amazing people that worked on this project. I mean, Neil and Manzer, you guys are rock stars, and the countless others of all the other offices that worked on this is just amazing. I mean, I didn't even know that sports interior design was a thing when I was in school, and now I can put my stamp on SoFi Stadium, and it's absolutely incredible. And at no one time do these, you know, architects make us interior designers feel less than, or just you go put finishes on the wall. It's very collective, it's very democratic, and it's all us working together in the thick of things to create this beautiful, beautiful stadium.
It wouldn't be what it was without your contribution.
Yeah, ditto.
Well, you guys don't like each other at all. A team experience like that, a collaborative experience, it really makes it special. That's definitely true.
Yeah, and it would be easy for us to say, you know, these projects go on for years and years and years. After an end of it, you know, oh, I'm sick of you. Let's move on to the next thing. But I mean, I'm on a project with Manzer right now. I'm in a project with Neil right now, 2 separate ones. And I love working with these guys, and I think everybody felt that collective, like just joy, and couldn't wait to do it again.
Oh, that's great. That's really wonderful to hear. Well, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to come to, that's the one cool thing that's come out of Zoom, right? Is that, at first it was annoying. How with COVID are we going to get all of our programming in, and how are we going to do all of this? But it's enabled us to do wonderful programs like this, to connect with people across the country and across the world. And it's been a wonderful experience for us here at AIA Miami, and to get to meet people like you and hear your experience with the projects and learn about it is really appreciated. I want to thank everyone that logged in. Also, if you want your credits, please make sure you put your info in the chat. We're going to close the meeting in just a minute, so you got to do it now. And remember, those Florida architects, you have to have all your credits done by December this year. And I know you all wait till the last minute, but come on, you need to get them now. So thank you very much. Again, thank the three of you. Thank you, Amanda, the other Amanda, for helping us put this together. Thanks, Colleen, for your work in coordinating. And we'll have to look for your next groovy project and call you back. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much,
everybody.
Very
Thanks for
much.
everybody who joined in.
Thank you very much. It
Thanks,
was a pleasure.
Amanda and Manser and Neil.
Thank you.
It's great to get to know you a little bit. Have a
Yeah.
good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you all.
care.
Thank you.